Hello my friends, this is Gene from Regular Guy Mountain Biking. In this video, we'll be doing a bike review of the Giant Trance Advanced Pro 29.3 mountain bike. The demo bike used in this review was provided to me by Wyckoff Cycle, located in Wyckoff, New Jersey. Wyckoff Cycle has been around for years with the mission of providing reliable bicycles and professional repair services at an affordable price. No matter what type of riding you're into, I'm sure you can find a bike that will fit your needs here. Wyckoff Cycle is a full-service bike shop that not only stocks plenty of gear, but has a great service department that can keep your bike up and running for years to come. Big shout out to my friends at Wyckoff Cycle for sponsoring this bike review. Please visit them via the link provided in the description below, or better yet, head on over and visit them in person. Now back to the bike review. The Giant Trance, what a fun bike to ride. Before we get into all the details on how the ride felt and things like that, let's spend a little bit of time around the Trance Advanced build specs. So let's start things off by checking out the cockpit. You'll find brakes from Shimano. They are the MT401 brake levers, and those brake levers are attached to Shimano MT400 hydraulic brakes. Continuing with the cockpit, you'll find a Giant Contact TR35 handlebar, a Giant Contact SL35 stem, as well as Giant grips. Finishing up the cockpit, there's a Giant Contact saddle, and that's attached to the Giant Contact switch dropper with remote. Let's get into suspension and start with the fork. That's a Marzocchi Z2 with 130 millimeters of travel. It has the rail damper inside of that, boost spacing, and a quick release to remove the front wheel. Your rear shock comes from Fox, and that would be the Fox Float DPS Performance Shock. The rear travel on this Trance is 115 millimeters. I think the most exciting part of the suspension on this bike is the Maestro linkage from Giant, and I'll talk more about that later on in the video. The drivetrain that comes on this bike is from SRAM, and it's the SX line. Up front you've got your SRAM Dub press fit bottom bracket, SRAM crankset, and attached to that crankset is a 30-tooth chainring. In the rear you've got your SRAM SX rear derailleur, and of course you've got your SRAM SX Eagle 11 by 50 tooth 12-speed cassette. Let's finish up the build spec by talking about the wheels and the tires. Both the front and the rear wheels use Giant TR1 alloy rims. To make up the rest of the front wheel, we've got a Giant Tracker Performance Boost hub and a Maxxis Minion DHF 29 by 23 XO tire. As for the rear tire, also Giant Tracker Performance Boost sealed bearing hubs, and that has a Maxxis DHR 229 2x3 XO tire. With all the bike specs covered, let's now talk about how much fun the Trance was to ride. The first thing I want to cover is how efficient I felt the bike was climbing up hills. I'd recently just done a review on a hardtail mountain bike that was incredibly efficient, so coming back to a full suspension, I was kind of expecting it to maybe not be so good, and I was pretty surprised. The bike was very efficient when it came to climbing up hills. Now clearly the only reason why most of us climb up hills is to have a hell of a lot of fun riding back down them. So let's talk about how the Trance felt on the descents. Like any mountain bike, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. First of all, normally I ride a medium, this was a large. Normally I'll ride a 27.5 wheel, this was a 29er. So bottom line is, it took a couple runs to get used to the feel of the bike. But man, I gotta tell you, after I rode it for a while, the Trance and I really started to get along nice, and I felt very, very comfortable on it. I ride in some very rocky, bumpy, as you can see, area, and the thing just hauled. So I have to guess that the hill climbing efficiency and the comfort cruising down the hills all has to do with the Maestro linkage that comes on this bike. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you that I know a whole lot about this. I could just tell you that it felt real good. So what does feel real good actually mean? Well, basically when I rode the bike, it just felt like it kind of murmured over the the tough stuff and the easy stuff and just anything with a rock or a bump on it. I mean, I took it on some pretty hairy stuff, and it just kind of just mumbled through it all, and I never really felt like I was getting jammed or kicked. It just rolled over everything, and I always felt like it was efficient throughout the whole ride. Something else I learned from riding this bike is I think I really like 29ers. Look, I mean, I know this isn't like Red Bull Rampage over here, but this is a pretty decent little roller there, and the 29er just soaked it up and rolled right through, and I felt safe the entire time. Something else that I found rather impressive about this bike was that I didn't have any trouble getting the front wheel off the ground. Again, not the craziest obstacle in the world, but it was very easy for me to get the front wheel up and over the obstacles that I was riding on that day. Now, just like I said earlier in the video, it did take a little while for me and the Trance to become good friends. It was a different kind of bike, I wasn't used to it, but after riding it for a little while, the bike and I really, we just got along quite well, and I was able to do a lot of things that normally would be a lot more challenging for me to pull off. So let's talk about how the components on this bike felt when I was out on the trails. Remember, this bike comes with the SRAM SX Grupo, and the shifting was fine. I know, not the highest end drivetrain in the world, but the shifting really was okay and didn't cause me any trouble out on the trails. So let's talk about the brakes. Generally, I'll ride SRAM brakes. I'll usually use the guide or the code brakes. But these Shimano's did do the job. The only thing I have to say is I really wasn't riding on very steep trails. So in order to give these brakes a fair review, I'd have to take this bike to some place a little bit more aggressive, and then I'd be able to give you a better review on the brakes. Did the bike stop? Yeah. Would I maybe upgrade them? Maybe. Again, I do like the SRAM brakes, but that's just a personal preference. The Marzocchi fork and the Fox shock, all good. Like I said with the brakes, I didn't get to take this bike to some crazy stuff. The suspension worked fine, it was very efficient when I was pedaling up hills, and felt really nice when I was going down hills. So I just have to give them both a thumbs up. They did the job just fine for me. They felt great. So all in all, the Trance Advanced Pro 29.3 was just a really fun bike to ride. I definitely would have liked to have had more time on it, maybe taken it to some more aggressive places so I could give you an idea of what it would be like at a bike park, but there's only so much time to ride these bikes before I have to move on to the next bike review. But bottom line is, definitely a great bike and a whole lot of fun to ride. Once again, this is Gene from Regular Guy Mountain Biking, and I really hope you enjoyed this bike review. If you have any questions, just please put them down in the comments below, and I'll do the best I can to get back to you just as soon as possible. Also, if you'd like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and certainly think about subscribing to Regular Guy Mountain Biking so you'll get to keep up with all the latest releases of our video content. As always, keep the party on the pedals, my friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.